once you get out of your car in the parking lot and cross that threshold at the beginning of the dock, you feel a calmness and less noise, almost no noise, and you start seeing most of these houses are occupied by artistic types or people who have artistic inclinations, and so you start seeing how their projects are going, and then you walk into your house and you've got your own little magic wonderland of your own. Well, it was a cabin on the beach. This area around here was a lot of mills and whatever. So I probably didn't have to come very far to be moved onto the water, and it went across from the University of Washington to where those houseboats over there. This lived over there for many years, and then about 1960 it was moved here. And then this guy that owned most of these docks, like 70% of these, all of the houseboat docks was owned by one guy, and he was kind of like the evil empire. But we formed this dummy corporation in California and pretended like we were developers from California who wanted to buy it. And he wouldn't talk to groups of residents other than that, so we had to kind of fool him. I'm not sure whether he was completely fooled or not, but anyway, he ended up making a deal with this company in California, which was not a company in California, and Docks Corporation was formed. So that's 31 houses on these two docks, and he built the monster on the end of our dock, which tees off the center. And if you get into a lot of houseboats, if you realize that's my front door with my front French doors, I could in the old days look out and see boats go by. So by putting that T, building a T on the end, which he could do because he owned the place, was kind of unfortunate. And this houseboat is not very well heated. As you can see, the bottom part of those French doors right there, you can see light through there. And all over this house, there's places where it leaks in like that. So if it's super cold, if it gets below 28 or so, for Seattle, that's super cold. It's a project that you never really get done. It's space heaters and floor heaters working 24 hours a day, and they can't keep up. It was built in 1914. We had it surveyed when we bought it. Supposedly has good bones, but it's like I say, there's no insulation between the walls and the outside, and it's not a deluxe building even for the time period that it was built. But I loved it. We loved it. It was owned by an Alaska Airlines stewardess before that. That stewardess had done a lot of things, like the work that's done in the bathroom and the kitchen, all that kind of rough stuff that was down there with all those shelves exposed and everything. That was something that the stewardess had built. There used to be a fire pit right where that rug is there. Chimney that went into the ceiling right above that where that rug is. And we had some women come out, chimney sweeps. We had a company here with a couple of women that do that. And we hired them to come out and do this, sweep our smokestacks. And the woman who did it says, "You got to get rid of this thing. This thing is a death trap. This will not. You will not live long in this house. The way this thing is fixed up." And just to imagine how this is so woody, and then an unkept fire goes fast to go 6 feet through an inner wall of tinder dry wood is, asking for it. So anyway, we got rid of that, but there were times that we had firewood piled up here instead of planter boxes, and I think it was only about 2 winters that I was here that we had the fireplace going. Then it went away. And this house was like one of the last around here of this old-fashioned one-story cabin, basically, built out of the logs. There was a house right here next to me here, which had an old guy named George in it, and the house was about as big as from that set of windows to you, and then the rest of the whole thing was a wide open deck with he and his little dog. Well, this was bought by Lady Zilla in about 1975 or so, 76. She had come from Idaho and she loved the houseboat scene, and she decided when she moved here that she was going to get a houseboat. So she searched around, and then this became available. It was $24,000. Big money bingo, man. She bought it, and she had to take a big loan out. We paid for it over a lot of years, and it finally became ours. But it was a pretty big deal. But during that period of time, while the mortgage was getting paid off, these things basically went from I would say in the 50s, it was kind of the Bohemians, a lot of artists, a lot of Bohemians lifestyle came out of here, poets, and then in the 60s, it became still artists and people that were not so bound up in traditional working patterns. That was the scene. It was a houseboat scene. Zella owned this place for 3 years, I think, before I moved in. She was a head teacher at an alternative school in Seattle, and I was teaching at that school, and we ended up getting together. And I moved in with her, and we basically set up She bought the place, and this was her place, really. We developed over the years a relationship very much like a husband and wife, and in the year 2009, we signed up for something called the Secretary of State had a thing for domestic partners, where you could get a license or you get a certificate from the Washington State that you were official partners, which was something we did kind of as on a lark, but it turns out to be something that really meant a lot to me financially later on, because she had a good school income, and when she died, that income went over to me. So it's kind of like when I stayed in Mexico, and I realized after lying in this crummy house for 3 weeks and doing nothing except for reading books and listening to the music, that was it. That was the answer. It was listening to the music and reading books. And it wasn't, I mean, I could just go in and flop down on the bed and go to sleep at night, but that was the secret of the place. I was just completely relaxed and completely living in the hammock world. And I think the moment that I had is after living here for a few years, and Zilla and I's relationship kind of leveled out we agreed on things almost completely, all kinds of, we both went to the movies every week, and we did all kinds of stuff together. Just the quietness and the neighborhood and the neighbors, and after a few years you realize this is different than most of the city, and it's wonderful. And it's not something that you automatically get or you feel. It's something that takes some time to kind of work through your thick skull. We both loved Mexican food, and we went one New Year's Eve. Zella and I went to Mexico City, which was a very strange place to go on New Year's Eve. The whole city of Mexico City goes to Zihuatanejo or Cancun or something over the holidays. So it was very, very not busy. But a few years later than that, my friend at American Music, where I was working at by then, told me about a friend of his who had found a place called Zihuatanejo, and we made reservations for a place there and ended up spending a couple of weeks at a place there. And then when we were about ready to finish our vacation, Zella basically said, "Why don't you stay down here and have 2 or 3 months by yourself?" Well, I don't know if I deserve this sympathy, but I had just come through a lot of bringing up children and taking care of schedules and teaching school and coordinating with an ex-wife that I did not get along very well with. So it was such a wonderful thing to have that time alone. That became our pattern of living for about 5 years after that. So we would come down for Christmas, and then I would stay down for a couple of months by myself, and then go back home again. And it was during that, when I was in Mexico, I was first living in this Casa La Playa, which is there, $14 a night, a real crummy place, but it was on the beach in downtown Zihuatanejo. And after about 2 weeks, when I first saw this apartment, I thought, this house for rent, I thought, this is a real shithole. And it was. I mean, it was just bare cement walls and exposed plumbing and open rickety-rackety fan. But after about 2 weeks being in the hammock and reading books and listening to music and not thinking about much of else, I realized that I was in heaven. I was in the perfect place. I've always considered myself kind of not an artist, but an art consumer. I'm happy to be in that role. My best friends in Mexico was a Mexican woman, Natalia, and her Norwegian boyfriend, Stein, and they lived in a building which had been a hotel, a bodega, and a hotel in downtown Zihuatanejo, right on the water. The mother had brought the family up in that house. Stein and Natalia had two shops, one a shop of clothing and indigenous art, and the other La Zapoteca, a store completely of rugs from Oaxaca, made by the Zapotec Indians. I just liked the rugs, and I liked some of the stuff in the store. The place isn't big enough to hold a collection of everything. These Alabrijes animals, I love them. There's so many of them available in the world, and I tried to buy ones that were iconic or good examples of the best of the best. So there's people who know those animals would say that's really a good collection of them. Rugs, I also have a really nice collection of the Zapotec Indian rugs. In the 60s, we started getting lawyers and architects and non-traditional houseboat kind of people buying things here. And that was the kind of when the world changed is when they came and they started, the values of them started going up, and they started, when a remodel was built, they built them to be more like a land house, which usually meant going up another story, and all kinds of things that you would find in a upper middle class land house. Well, it's almost completely changed. I guess you would call me one of the old guard, although I'm an exceptionalist. Structure itself has not really changed at all, but I'm completely surrounded by houses that are two stories up now, and all but one of them was only one story when I first moved in here 40 years ago. Though I watched the whole dock go up, and that's because the value of the property has become so outrageously high. We paid $24,000 for this houseboat in '76 or '77. It's worth now $600,000. So amazing amount of value added. And that's because it went from those working people and those who used to live here became lawyers and architects and college professors. And they're the ones where the value went up, but also some of the fun away from the parties. Well, people who own houseboats, especially on Lake Union, are very popular on the 4th of July. One of the early years of the Fat Tuesday, and Michelli had a sausage sandwich place down there, and I worked there for the day, frying up Italian sausages for his sandwiches, dipping into the wine the whole day. So by the time the day was over, I was pretty well plastered and came home. There was all these people in here, party members, half of them Zella's friends from school, and half of them my friends. And I remember it was a really wonderful day of talking about possibilities of the school system and general life philosophy stuff. But when I came home, I wanted to get this layer of grease off my body. I felt like I had been dipped in pig grease. So I walked through the house and I just started peeling off my clothes. And by the time I got to there, I pulled off my shorts and I dove into the lake. And it was like a science fiction movie. I felt like when I dove in, the water was cool enough so that all that stuff broke off of me and I was freed. And then I got out and became the host of the party. Well, Zella and I used to do this ourselves, and we used to call it the 2-hour gardening project because we would go out and buy everything that we needed, bring it back, set it on the dock, then go through, pull everything out, put some new fresh dirt on the top of stuff, and replant everything and have the whole thing done in a couple of hours. And then we would, if the weather was right and it was planted at the right time, in a couple of weeks, that box right there is my favorite. It fills up with salmon and purple impatiens. There's a strawberry pot here that's got a place where about 15 lobelia, we plant 15 lobelia, and that place ends up just being totally overgrown and flowing down all of the same color of purple flowers. And then I just ordered there's a garden store out by Issaquah or somewhere like that we would buy flowers from them for years. The Richie Riches on the end buy 4 or 5 of these baskets of flowers. My gardening person could do these too. It's just, they really do a good job with them out there. I ordered one of those the other day, so we're going to get one of those probably in the first week of May. And that's kind of like the cornerstone lead flower deal. And then we wanted to put some flowers around the front door and on the deck right here.